Welcome to my channel. Subscribe and enjoy my new stories every day. I had never felt so heavy as the day I returned from my business trip, the kind where the weight of your own suitcase feels like dragging stones. My wife Mealy, 7 months pregnant, was supposed to be the beacon drawing me home. Yet, the house that greeted me felt off, like a still frame from a movie I never wanted to watch. The sun was setting as I pulled into our driveway. There, a man stood awkwardly at our front door, his hands shoved deep into his pockets, his gaze darting around nervously. I had expected a quiet evening, the gentle murmurs of my wife talking to our unborn child, my child. But this? Can I help you? I asked, my voice steady but firm, masking the sudden surge of unease. The stranger turned, a mix of confusion and surprise etching his features. I came to support her, he stammered, his eyes not quite meeting mine. Support her? I echoed, the suitcase hitting the ground with a thud. And you are? His hesitation was a sliver of time too long. I'm a father. He mumbled finally, the words trailing off as if caught in the wind. A father? The world seemed to pause, a grotesque stillness settling over me. The noise of children playing down the street, the rustling of the autumn leaves, all faded into a suffocating silence. I stared at him, my mind racing, piecing together a puzzle I never knew was scattered. As I pushed past him, a cold dread settled in my chest. Mealy sat in the living room, her face crumpling into tears when she saw my expression. The room, warmly lit and cozy, felt like a stage for a play of betrayal. Mealy, what's going on? Who is that man? I demanded, my voice a harsh whisper. She sobbed, her words tumbling out in a torrent of despair and fear. I'm so sorry, James. He's someone I dated before we met. The baby, I didn't know until recently, it's his. Every word struck like a hammer, shattering the glass of the life we had built. The man, her ex, now revealed as the father of the child I thought was mine, lingered in the doorway, an intruder in my own nightmare. The revelation was a brutal awakening from a dream I realized I had been living. Betrayed and heartbroken, my thoughts spiraled into dark recesses. Mealy reached out to me, pleading, but the man I was before that moment, the man who had lovingly painted the nursery, who had talked to her belly every night, had vanished. I turned away from her outstretched hands, the decision crystallizing in the cold anger that replaced my shock. You've both deceived me, I said quietly, my voice void of the warmth it once held for her. The days that followed were a blur of actions fueled by a cold, calculated fury. I contacted a lawyer, initiated the divorce proceedings, and watched as the life I had known crumbled into legal documents and packed boxes. Mealy begged for forgiveness, for understanding, but the chasm between us had grown too wide, filled with the deceit I could not overlook. My revenge was not loud or violent, it was the quiet devastation of departing from her life entirely, leaving her to face the consequences of her choices without me. As I drove away from the house for the last time, the rearview mirror reflecting the life I was leaving behind, I felt the shackles of the betrayal finally begin to loosen. There was nothing left to say, nothing left to salvage. I was free, but at what cost? The days after I left Mealy were filled with a chilling silence, interrupted only by the relentless ringing of my phone. Ignored calls piled up, voicemails from mutual friends, pleading for me to reconsider, to talk it out. I couldn't. The betrayal was too deep, the wound too raw. As I sat in my new, sparsely furnished apartment, the reality of my solitude wrapped around me like a cold fog. But amidst the silence, a plan began to take shape, a plan not just to sever ties, but to ensure Mealy understood the depth of the deceit she had woven into our lives. The first step was simple yet crucial. I reached out to mutual friends, explaining the situation with calculated calmness. The reactions varied from shocked disbelief to supportive anger on my behalf. But information was what I needed, and information was what I gathered. Who knew, who didn't, and most importantly, who could influence Mealy's social standing the most. Armed with this knowledge, I approached one of our closest friends, Laura, who had been instrumental in organizing our wedding. We met at a quiet cafe, the buzz of the morning crowd a stark contrast to the gravity of our conversation. Laura, I trusted her, and she lied to me from the very start, I began, my voice steady but laced with controlled anger. The table between us felt like a barrier, a line drawn between past loyalties and present truths. Laura's face was a mix of sympathy and shock. James, I had no idea. I mean, we all thought, she trailed off, her discomfort palpable. That's just it, isn't it? We all thought. But thinking isn't knowing, and I was made a fool, I countered sharply, leaning in. And I need you to help me make sure everyone knows the truth. The whole truth. Her hesitation was brief, a moment of internal conflict before the nod. What do you need from me? Spread the word. I want everyone to know why I left. She shouldn't get the luxury of playing the victim in all this. My request was met with a slow, reluctant agreement. As the days turned into weeks, my network acted subtly but effectively. Invitations to Mealy were retracted, her social media filled with pointed questions and conspicuous silences. The community we once shared tightened around her, a noose of ostracism based on the betrayal she had orchestrated. One evening, as I scrolled through the cascading effects of my campaign, a new email notification caught my attention. It was from Mealy, her first attempt to reach out since the divorce proceedings began. Her words were a mixture of apology and desperation, a plea for at least a conversation, if not reconciliation. But as I read her email, the soft pings of incoming messages provided a counterpoint to her written regrets. Screenshots, forwarded messages, ripples of the social exile I had engineered. Each notification a reinforcement of the path I had chosen. I typed a response, my fingers steady, my resolve firmer with each word. There's nothing left to discuss. You made your choice long before any vows were made. I suggest you focus on the future, as I am. Sent. Another tie cut, another step forward. That night, the city lights blinked back at me from my apartment window, indifferent and distant. I realized then that my plan had not brought the satisfaction I had anticipated. Instead, there was a hollowness, a recognition that while revenge had its merits, it could not rebuild what was lost. The intrigue of my revenge, the unfolding consequences of our shattered marriage, promised more complexity in the chapters to come. But for now, I was alone, the echoes of betrayal reverberating louder in the newfound silence of my life. The cafe was bustling with the lunchtime crowd, a cacophony of chatter and clinking cutlery. I sat at a corner table, sipping my coffee, waiting for the man who had unwittingly shattered my life. He had reached out via a mutual acquaintance, requesting to meet, to explain. Curiosity, more than anything, led me to agree. He arrived, looking as uneasy as the first time I saw him on my doorstep. James, he greeted, his voice tinged with an awkward respect as he sat across from me. Thomas, I nodded, my greeting terse. So, what is it that you want to explain? Thomas took a deep breath, his hands fidgeting with a napkin. Look, I didn't know she was married until that day I showed up. Mealy told me she was single, living with a roommate, that's what she called you. His words spilled out, earnest and pleading. I stared, the bitterness welling up. A roommate, I echoed scornfully. And you never thought to confirm? To check? He winced. I should have. I know that now. But I believed her. I loved her, he confessed, his gaze faltering under my glare. The conversation was interrupted by my phone vibrating aggressively on the table. It was a call from Laura. I excused myself and stepped outside the cafe to answer. James, you need to come over, she urged, her voice tense. It's about Mealy. She's here, causing a scene, demanding to see you. The urgency in her voice spurred me into action. I ended the meeting abruptly, leaving Thomas with a slew of unanswered questions and dashed hopes. Driving to Laura's house, the scenarios played out in my mind like a twisted reel. Arriving, I found Mealy on Laura's doorstep, her face tear-streaked, her demeanor frantic. "James. Please, just talk to me," she cried out as I approached. "Why, Mealy? So you can lie more? Manipulate further?" I snapped, the sight of her reigniting a fresh wave of anger. "I made a mistake, but I never stopped loving you. Can't we try to sort this out?" Her plea was desperate, her hands reaching out towards me. "Love isn't deception, Mealy. You chose this path." "Not me," I retorted, keeping my distance as neighbors began to peek out their windows, drawn by the commotion. "But I'm alone now. He left too. Nobody wants anything to do with me anymore because of what you've told them." Her accusation stung, even if it was true. "That was your doing, not mine. You made those choices, Mealy. You have to live with them," I said coldly, the finality in my voice a clear dismissal. Turning to leave, her voice broke through, sharper. "You think you're hurting me, but what about our friends? What about the community? You're tearing everything apart." Stopping in my tracks, I faced her again. "I'm not the one who lied, Mealy. I'm just shining a light on the truth. It's not my actions tearing anything apart. It's the truth about yours." With that, I walked away, the echoes of her sobbing fading behind me. The drive home was long, filled with conflicting emotions. Victory felt hollow when the battlefield was strewn with the remnants of a life I once cherished. As I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, the loneliness was palpable. Retribution had come at a high price. The intrigue of my next steps, the resolution of this tangled web of deceit and revenge, loomed large. What remained was to see how deep the scars would go and whether the path of vengeance would ever lead back to peace. The final confrontation was inevitable. As autumn's chill seeped into the city, the bare branches like specters against the clouded sky, the stage was set for a cold, calculated end to the sordid tale of deceit. I had arranged to meet Mealy one last time, in the quiet park where we had once planned our future, where the remnants of our past could scatter like the fallen leaves underfoot. She arrived, her face pale, her eyes wary, aware, perhaps, that this was no ordinary meeting. "James," she greeted me, her voice quivering slightly. "Mealy," I replied, my tone even, my emotions barricaded behind a wall of resolve. "You asked for one last chance to talk. So talk." She hesitated, taking a deep breath. "I know I've ruined everything. But there's something you need to know about that day, the day you came back and saw Thomas at our door." I frowned, suspicion coiling in my gut. "What about it?" "He wasn't just there to see me or to support me. He was there to end it with me," she confessed, her eyes darting away, unable to meet my gaze. "He knew about the pregnancy and panicked. He wanted out before you returned." The revelation did little to soften the bitterness. "So, your betrayal had layers. Is that supposed to be better?" I challenged, my voice hard. "No, James, it's not just that. I was trying to end it too. I wanted us, our family, to work. But I was scared to tell you the truth. Scared you'd leave me," she said, the desperation in her voice ringing hollow to my ears. The park was quiet, the conversation a stark contrast to the peaceful setting. I reached into my coat, pulling out an envelope filled with photographs and messages between Mealy and Thomas, gathered by a private investigator. The pictures were damning, a chronicle of their continued deceit. "Scared, or manipulative? You didn't want me to leave, or you didn't want your affair to end." I tossed the envelope at her feet. "I know about the meetings, Mealy. After you said it was over. You lied, again and again." She stooped to pick up the envelope, her hands trembling as she sifted through the contents. Tears started to stream down her face. James, No, I cut her off sharply, stepping back. This is the end, Mealy. Our final act. There's nothing left to salvage. Turning on my heel, I left her there amidst the evidence of her betrayal, her sobs echoing behind me. But the path of revenge was not yet complete. The community that had once embraced us both needed to witness the fallout of Mealy's deception. Within days, the photos and messages were anonymously leaked to our social circles. Mealy's reputation, already teetering on the brink of ruin, crumbled under the weight of public scrutiny. Jobs were lost, friendships severed, and the social exile became absolute. Yet, as I watched her life disintegrate from the cold distance of my newfound solitude, the victory was Pyrrhic. The satisfaction I had expected to feel was replaced by a somber realization, the realization that the path of vengeance had not just destroyed her but had chipped away at my own humanity. Months later, a letter arrived. No return address, just a simple, handwritten note inside. It was from Mealy. She was leaving the city, starting anew somewhere I would never find her. The letter was not an apology, nor a plea, it was a goodbye, a final severance of whatever tenuous threads had still connected us. I burned the letter that evening, the flames consuming the last vestiges of a marriage destroyed by deceit. As the ashes fluttered away, carried by the wind, so too did the remnants of the man I once was. In the end, the deception was laid bare, the betrayers punished, and the bonds of love and trust irreparably severed. The park, once a place of shared dreams, now stood as a silent witness to the ruins of a relationship, a stark reminder of the cost of betrayal and the hollow reward of revenge.